Hello world! Is the concept of Anonymous at this point just one big scam? A secretive data center in Poland has been raided, and researchers can now figure out your passwords based on the sound of your keyboard clicks. That's all coming up in today's roundup of cybersecurity tech news. The Anonymous mask is probably the most widely recognized symbol of hacktivism in the world, but Anonymous really hasn't been much of a thing for almost a decade, so I was surprised to see a video from a group called Anonymous Sudan in my feeds, who has a message for the world.
Any country that tries to act unfriendly and in a harmful manner against Sudan and attempting to meddle into our internal affairs will be targeted very harshly.
Once I got past the bad camera angle and cringy intro, I did some digging on Anonymous Sudan. Are these guys really hacktivists, as the name Anonymous suggests, or are they part of a wider problem of people milking the brand of Anonymous for money and notoriety? The group spawned in early 2023, and like any good hacking group, their base of operations is a Telegram channel, with their first post simply saying that they will launch cyber attacks against those who oppose Sudan. And since then, they've been busy. They first targeted Swedish government websites with DDoS attacks before moving on to the Netherlands and then Denmark, all in response to people in these countries burning copies of the Quran. On the face of it, Anonymous Sudan is just another pro-Islamic hacktivist group, which isn't a new concept. However, the reality of who's behind Anonymous Sudan and what their true intentions are might be a little more complicated. Researchers at CyberCX analysed Anonymous Sudan's relationship with other Telegram channels, and they found a strong connection to the Killnet collective. Killnet, who we've seen before on this channel, is a staunchly pro-Russian hacktivist group. Ever since the war in Ukraine began, these guys have been DDoSing the hell out of anyone who is even vaguely pro-Western. Now, I'm putting hacktivist in quotation marks here because these guys aren't just hacktivists, they're entrepreneurs. They've used their hacktivism as a kind of advertising tool to amass over 100,000 subscribers to their Telegram channel, where they monetize their followers by selling them their services. One of Killnet's money-making schemes is a cryptocurrency exchange. Another is something they call Dark School, in other words, courses in cybercrime, where script kiddies can learn valuable life skills like carding in a variety of languages. But best of all, and you might want to sit down for this one, Killnet sells jewelry. Yeah, you heard that right. These guys partnered with a jeweler in Moscow to make Killnet branded rings and earrings. But how does Anonymous Sudan fit into all of this? Well, the allegation from security researchers is that Anonymous Sudan is neither anonymous nor Sudanese, but is rather a Killnet project, a subsidiary of them, so to speak, which exists to abuse the very recognisable open source brand of Anonymous to gain quite a following on its own Telegram channel, from where it siphons people off to Killnet so they can be monetized, under the guise that the two hacktivist groups are partnered and operate under the same kind of umbrella. But what evidence is there that Anonymous Sudan is really operated by Russians? One incredibly basic but effective way to tell where cyber miscreants are based is just to look at the time of day they operate at and see which time zone that fits into. But since Sudan and Moscow have very similar time zones, that's not much help here. However, interestingly, if you head over to their Telegram channel and scroll all the way up to their first few posts, you'll find that they only speak in Russian and English, just like Killnet, which is a bit odd for a group supposedly based in Sudan, a country which mainly speaks Arabic. And funnily enough, when security researchers pointed out this language discrepancy in a report, all of a sudden their Telegram channel started speaking Arabic, almost overnight. As for the targets of Anonymous Sudan, more often than not, they just so happen to overlap with those of Killnet. However, sometimes that isn't the case. For example, they recently targeted Kenya, managing to disrupt a bunch of government services in an attack which actually made mainstream news. And this actually goes against the narrative and suggests Anonymous Sudan really might be their own group. I mean, Killnet doesn't have anything to do with Kenya. But just like Killnet, Anonymous Sudan isn't all about the hacktivism. They've been known to demand thousands, if not millions of dollars in ransom payments from the companies they DDoS. Which I guess brings me to the main point of this segment. Whether it's pseudo-hacktivist groups using the brand of Anonymous to make money, or Twitter accounts exploiting the brand for attention, there's a strong trend of people using the dying brand of Anonymous for some kind of personal gain. I realise anonymous is just a word and the meaning of word changes, but I don't think people's perception of the word has caught up with what it actually means in reality, which has led to the people that brand themselves under anonymous getting a lot of undeserved attention. I mean, some of these Twitter accounts LARPing as anonymous have hundreds of thousands of followers. Similarly, I don't think Anonymous Sudan would have achieved anywhere near the same level of reach that they have if they didn't include that 9-letter word in their name. So, Anonymous, don't take it so seriously. The name, it really means nothing. Something you should take seriously though is our sponsor, PlexTrack. PlexTrack is a cybersecurity reporting and collaboration platform used by the best pen testing teams, empowering them to build better reports in half the time, exponentially increasing their ROI and time savings. PlexTrack helps them aggregate findings from all their tools by consolidating the testing process into one platform, creating a single source of truth, and maximizes their reusable report content like findings, write-ups, and narratives, improving consistency across the team. With PlexTrack, you'll become more efficient and effective, delivering better results from every engagement. Simply put, you'll be spending more time hacking and less time reporting. And PlexTrack is offering you a free month of their platform using the link in the description. So big thanks to PlexTrack for sponsoring this video. Next up, an infamous web hosting provider has just been raided and its admins arrested by European authorities. The website LolekHosted promised 100% privacy hosting, a no-log policy, and these guys said they would host everything. But their promises come at a cost. A dual-core VPS from these guys comes in at $60 per month, whereas something similar from a more mainstream hoster would only set you back around $15 per month. LolekHosted was pricey. So, what did you get for the extra money? Well, according to the US Department of Justice, LolekHosted admins would ignore abuse complaints made against its customers and would notify its users of legal inquiries received from law enforcement. In other words, LolekHosted was a bulletproof hoster, which is quite simply a hosting provider which isn't too fussed about their services being used for illegal activities. An optimist might think that services like this would primarily be used by organisations like WikiLeaks, that host websites with content that some governments might disapprove of, shall we say. But no, typically the customers of bulletproof hosters are, well, cybercriminals. In fact, often the only rule bulletproof hosters have is that they won't host anything CP related. But sometimes you can't even trust them on that. The shutdown of the famous bulletproof hoster Cyberbunker just a few years ago revealed it was infested with the stuff, despite publicly stating that they were 100% against it. Polish police, who released a fancy video of them raiding Lolek's data center, said that after seizing the hundreds of servers run by Lolek, they found that its customers were conducting DDoS attacks, distributing malware, running cybercrime forums, and launching ransomware attacks. In fact, Lolek's highest profile customer was the Netwalker ransomware gang, a now defunct group responsible for hundreds of ransomware attacks, which was using Lolek services for their command and control servers, helping them to make over 5,000 Bitcoin in ransom payments. But this is only the highest profile customer that we know about. We'll no doubt have more juicy details once police have combed through all of Lolek's data, which is already going on. You can see in the video, police have hard drives hooked up to some kind of forensics device, which I imagine is cloning them bit for bit. But who was running LolekHosted? The alleged owner is one Artur Karol Grabowski. In fact, Lolek is actually a nickname for Karol. ChatGPT helped me figure that out. So the guy seems to have named his hosting company after himself. But Karol is currently on the run, a fugitive who's facing potentially 45 years in prison if he's caught. Whilst he did get away, at least for now, his admins that were tasked with keeping the lights on weren't so lucky, with 5 of them being arrested when Lolek's data center was raided. Next up, security researchers have come up with a way of extracting your passwords simply from the sound your keyboard makes as you type them. This is a perfect example of a side channel attack, a breach which exploits unintended physical behaviours to illicitly access data. We've looked at quite a few side channel attacks in the past, but whilst they are kinda cool to learn about, more often than not they're absolutely useless in real world scenarios because they'll only work under a very specific set of conditions. This, however, is different. Researchers have published a paper in which they explain how they're able to record the audio of a Zoom call, for example, and extracts the background noise of you clicking away at your keyboard in order to figure out what you're typing, with an accuracy of over 90%. This all works on the basis that different keys produce a slightly different sound when they're tapped. This could be caused by things like a difference in distance between each key and the microphone, manufacturing variations in the keyboard, and just your specific style of typing. The researchers demonstrated all of this on a 16-inch M1 MacBook Pro. They recorded the sound made from tapping each key 25 times and then converted the waveforms from each key press into spectrograms, a visual representation of the spectrum of frequencies. Then they fed those images into an image classifier AI, and with the power of artificial intelligence, created a model which could guess what key was being pressed just based on its tapping sound, with an accuracy of 93% if the audio was recorded over a Zoom call, or 95% if the audio was recorded locally, using an iPhone. Now, the researchers only tested a MacBook's keyboard, which is known for being relatively quiet, so if you're a mechanical keyboard supremacist, then this kind of attack would probably be even more accurate. However, there is a catch. Once trained, the AI model is only effective at deciphering the keys for the specific keyboard and person it was trained on, so the average person doesn't really need to worry about someone deciphering their keystrokes when they're typing away in a coffee shop, for example, because there's just no chance of an attacker having a pre-trained model for them. But that doesn't mean that this attack couldn't be used in the real world. One group that I could realistically see being targeted is streamers. A model could be trained by recording their key clicks when they type something on screen, and given just how long streamers stream for, and the fact that all those streams are public, means there's hundreds of hours of training data freely available. So if I was a streamer, especially one of the bigger ones, I'd definitely be taking precautions, because there's for sure going to be someone crazy enough out there to dedicate all the time and energy needed to train a model for them. In terms of precautions, the research paper has some ideas. It suggests playing white noise in the background, or noises of randomly generated keystrokes, neither of which strike me as very elegant solutions. Alternatively, they suggest that when typing passwords, you could change your typing style to throw off any detection attempts, or make use of the fact that it's quite difficult for the AI to detect the shift key. I mean, pressing it can be easily detected, but it's difficult to tell when it's released, so you could include some uppercase or special characters into your passwords, something you should, well, probably be doing anyway. But the most obvious solution is just to use a password manager, so you never actually have to type passwords in the first place. This kind of acoustic keyboard attack isn't totally new. In 2017, a different set of researchers managed to achieve an accuracy of 74%. And a few years ago, a different researcher made an open source tool for deciphering keyboard clicks. I'll link this below. You type in a bunch of training data, then it'll figure out the average sound for each of your keys. It didn't work for me very well, and rarely guessed a key correctly, but in fairness I didn't follow the instructions and use my mechanical keyboard, as I wasn't too keen on putting my actual key click sounds out there on the interwebs, given research papers like this exist. But I'll link it down below if you want to play around with it. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.